This is Kirby's Kickoff. We're powered by Frederick County Parks and Recreation. So glad you're with us. It's the Class 2 state title, Strasburg and Glenvar, Saturday morning from Salem Stadium. On the call for that matchup, Ryan Rutherford along with Randy Woodward as we look at this game just a little bit closer there on the River 95.3, and they will have the call. Congratulations are in order to you, Ryan. Third state championship game you get the opportunity to call. As a broadcaster, I would imagine you take great pride and joy in how many state titles you're able to get to and witness.
Oh yeah, it's a definitely a huge honor. I mean, obviously, I don't have too much to do with getting there. I rely on the coattails of the great athletes in our area. But yeah, it's been really cool to be able to do that 3 of the last 4 years, and I know Randy has quite a few under his belt as well. I believe Randy's called both of the Hanley State Championship wins as well. So he has a lot of state champions that he's seen. But I've been always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Every time we go, they fall a little short. So I'm hoping this year will be the one we get to call a winning state championship team.
Strasburg Rams defeating Poquoson last week, a story that we have seen before because they went down to beat them the year prior as well. Poquoson, a lot of mistakes in the Strasburg Rams, able to capitalize with the great help of the offensive and defensive line play up front. That was the huge factor in the big win against Poquoson.
Yeah, definitely. Strasburg dominated both sides of the line. I mean, it seemed like defensively, Jacob Britton, Hudson Conrad, those guys were just living in the backfield. And then on the other side of things, they just continued to open up just massive holes. It seemed like the lines for Strasburg, I think that it looked like they must have had a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They had a little different kind of swagger to them because I think they knew a lot of very high rated coaches for big teams. We're going to be watching some film from that game because of Carter Jones on the other side, the 4-star prospect for Poquoson. So they knew that game was going to have a lot of eyeballs on them. Strasburg doesn't normally have their players recruited super heavily. Nobody in the Valley does. We get left out all the time, so it's ridiculous. But they knew that was their chance to get some eyeballs on them, and they just went, showed out, dominated. Really impressive win for the Rams.
Yes, you did mention that quite a few times on the broadcast, and I know there was some officiating mistakes that I got the chance to hear about on the broadcast as well, which just it always brings a smile to my face.
Well, and one of them that was just really, I mean, I think both teams had opportunities to be frustrated with the officials. A huge play early in the game that did go on Strasburg's side was a missed defensive pass interference that led to a Strasburg interception. That was a huge play in their advantage. But then also on the other side of things, there was a really bad call on, it should have been a forced fumble that Strasburg should have got. And I know it's a bad call because our friends over at Aaron K Designs and Photography, Isaiah, got some great shots of that play where you can just see the ball getting ripped away. You can see the kid's knee is like this far from being down. So he had a great shot and just gave some validity to my frustration with that missed call. But in general, I mean, Strasburg knew they were going to have to go out there, leave no doubt, don't put it in the hands of anybody like that. And they did. They certainly proved they were the best team, and there was no way you could take that away from them.
Quincy Williams, another stellar, impressive game as well. In part of that offensive line, hearing his name called numerous times by Randy throughout the afternoon. What'd you see from him, and what'd you like from him?
Oh, he is incredible. Over 100 yards before even halftime in that game. I think he was individually outgaining Poquoson in at halftime. So he was just incredible. Before the game started, there's a old Poquoson good old boys club that was hanging out in the press box, and they were like, "Is Strasburg better than last year?" Like, I know they don't have Takai Coates anymore, and I was like, "Well, no, like they don't have Takai Coates anymore, but." This guy they have that has stepped into his role. I know he was there last year, but he stepped up. He's a region offensive player of the year also. So I mean, it wasn't really a backward step, just a different step. Quincy is a little bit of a different type of runner. Doesn't have exactly the like breakaway speed that Takai. He has a ton of speed, not quite the speed Takai had, but he makes up for that with more power. He's a much more powerful runner. I also thought he did a great job of just making sure he was controlling the football. You could see him going through some of the really tough areas. He had both hands on it tight to his chest, so made sure he was holding on to it and fighting through those tackles because Pekosin was ripping at the football. They just couldn't get it from him.
Yeah, and it seemed like towards the end of the game too, from what I was hearing, Pocosin some mental mistakes, some frustration that let out as well. I know you were vocal about that at times
It was
too.
wild. He almost punched his own teammate. I don't think and he pushed an official. That was one of the crazy instances. There was also when one of the players' helmets came off, and Pocosin player took extreme offense to the helmet coming off of his quarterback. And I mean, I appreciate you trying to defend your quarterback. That's something you see at every level. But there's also a line. It was clearly an accident on that play. It wasn't like the Strasburg player was trying to rip his head off. Just sometimes that happens. Your helmet gets underneath the arm and it'll come off. So yeah, there were a couple really crazy moments, but that'll happen whenever you're a team that's not used to getting punched in the mouth the way that Strasburg was in that game. You know, sometimes it's shocking to see that you can't be the dominant team like they had been for almost every other game that season.
And much credit to Strasburg for not even responding to that, just
Yeah, they did a great
sticking to what
job.
sticking to what they do and coming away with the victory. So, moving ahead, Ryan, it is Strasburg and Glenvar. It might be too early to ask, but what are you gathering from this Glenvar team so far?
Yeah, I have watched a little bit of them already. I watched the Glenver Union game last night,
Which
actually.
was
Um,
incredible finish.
yeah, it was an incredible game. The Union broadcast team that had their feed on NFHS, they did a great job. It was a very fun, exciting game. The atmosphere there was just amazing. It was really loud. You could just hear those fans for Union getting behind them all game. So Strasburg fans going to need to show up and be loud to impact that game as well. But yeah, no, they look like a really solid team. I mean, obviously, Glenver has the best quarterback in Class 2 right now. Brody the Yacht, he has been absolutely incredible, not just this year, but every year. I think he's been a starter since he was a freshman. So he is somebody that Strasburg is going to need to really account for. Luckily for them, they have already faced some pretty good quarterbacks this year. You look at Noah Moss for Central. I think he's extremely underrated in the state as a really high level quarterback. But Dion, yeah, he's just a different animal. Has that Division 1 size. He's already committed to go to UNC Charlotte, which is a really solid mid-major school. So yeah, they're gonna have to be ready for it. It's gonna be the biggest contrast in styles you will probably ever see in a state championship with Glenver very pass oriented, and then of course the T formation of Strasburg.
Yeah, that's very interesting when you put it that way, Ryan. Two different styles of offense
Hmm.
and how you come out and prepare for that on both sides of the football. I would imagine that would be a lot to sort of prepare for to make sure your team's 100% prepared.
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult because Strasburg doesn't have anybody that can scout team and pretend to be a Dayot type passer. And Glenver, on the other hand, they probably haven't seen a team that runs the T formation like Strasburg. They start having kids running that system when they're like in middle school and through JV. So they're very adept at running the T and knowing their keys, knowing their assignments. And that can be something really hard to practice against. I think we saw that in the game versus Pocosin. They early in that game really struggled to just figure out who had the football, what hole they were going through. So whenever you see it in game speed versus practice speed, it can be kind of jarring early.
And Strasburg, as we mentioned time in and time out, their offensive line creates space holes for running backs to make good plays. Quincy Williams, Brady Knight, and the defensive line as well, generating a lot of pressure. I would imagine more of the same in this game. And when you mention a quarterback who's been starting the past 4 seasons for this Glenver team, that that might be a pretty big key there.
Yeah, they're going to have to get pressure on him. Whenever Union got pressure on him, you could see it did affect the way he played. is very good with the football, though. He's not afraid to throw it away. A lot of times in high school, you see kids want to be the hero every single play and throw it into coverage and across their body and across the field and stuff like that. He does not make those mistakes. He'll just get rid of it, throw it away, throw it to a check down, very mature in that level. But I do think Strasburg will be able to get pressure on the quarterback. Just looking at the lines for Glenvar, very undersized compared to Strasburg. They only have one player listed above 235 on their roster. And he's a sophomore, so I'm not even really sure how much he plays. So if they're going to have a whole line of about 235 while Strasburg is lining up about 285 across the front, that's going to be a pretty big size disadvantage for Glenvar, and that could be very hard to overcome.
It should be a lot of fun. It's the state title. It's Strasburg and Glenvar. Ryan Rutherford is on the call with Randy Woodward Saturday morning, switching that time to more earlier morning slate so you don't have to get back so late at night. But I mean, overall, Ryan, just what are your emotions getting set to call your third state title as a broadcaster?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I will say I am the most optimistic of all three of those state title appearances in the team that we're calling for, Strasburg. I think they have a really good chance in this one. Last year, Graham was very intimidating for a variety of reasons. Central, they were, you could tell they had their hands cut out or their work cut out for them with Graham as well in that one. So it's nice to not see the G-men back in the championship just because they have been so dominant and it can kind of be scary to see a team that's had that much success. But Strasburg has had a lot of success too. This is one of the crazy stats. I know I've told you this, Josh, before, but the most trips to a state title game without ever winning one. That's the Strasburg Rams. So I'm really hoping they can finally kick the door down this year. And I think they have their best chance at it. You'll have to wait for the Dukes preview to come out on Friday to see the complete prediction, but I think the Rams have a really good chance.
It should be a lot of fun. Ryan Rutherford, Randy Woodward, the River 95.3 is on the call of the Class 2 state title game, Strasburg and Glenvar. And I must say, Ryan, it's pleasure getting to hear you and Randy. Tremendous work throughout the course of this season, and looking forward to hearing one last call to put a bow on this very exciting, very fun high school football season. Appreciate your time as always here on Kirby's Kickoff, my friend, and look forward to future conversations down the line.
Yes, of course. And our basketball game on Friday with Skyline Warren County.